It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiuri. It's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show, it's being brought to you by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy right now where you're watching or listening to this show. Just go to Amazon.com and get it there, or you can go to Barnes & Noble or drop me an email, Bill at BillyCBoxing.com or Billy at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Hey, listen, I want to apologize first and foremost to anyone that was expecting me to go live at my normal time, because, I mean, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But some things came up where I would not be able to go live at 5 p.m. Eastern, but I didn't want to not do the show. So I'm doing it now. So hopefully the people that tune in at 5 will see the recording and watch the show. Anyway, want to start off by saying Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. There's been a lot of talk about the potential matchup between these two. Terence Crawford would have to move up not one, not two, but three weight classes to fight Canelo. My thoughts on this is I think it's good. I think it's good for boxing. And I'll tell you why. Terence Crawford is a unique fighter. I think that Terence Crawford is pound for pound number one fighter in the world, above Canelo. I've said this for a long time about Crawford. And, for the longest time, used to piss me off when I heard people tell me that he was overrated. He never fought anybody and all of this crap. Which is all BS with a capital B and a capital shit, okay? It's bullshit. Because Terence Crawford, if people forget that when he busted out onto the scene several years back, he was the B-side, and he kept winning. And then finally somebody said, you know what? Hey, I think we got something here. This Terence Crawford from Omaha, Nebraska, maybe it's not just a built-up record. And that's proved to be the case. The truth of the matter is this cat is a quality fighter. He's a good human being, and he's got that knack for flipping the switch when the bell rings. Okay, he's got a mean streak that really I haven't seen in a while. I mean, all right, I'm not comparing him to who I'm about to say, but this guy had a mean streak too for the longest time, and then it kind of fizzled out a little bit. But Mike Tyson, no, he's not the same style fighter, and there's no way I'm comparing Crawford to Mike Tyson, two different fighters in different weight classes in different eras. But the mean streak part, and I think that Terence Crawford has that legitimate switch that he flips, and similar. I'll tell you another guy I'll compare him to. Is, and again, not stylistically wise, but flipping the switch is the late great Jack Dempsey. Both Tyson and Dempsey, and of course Terence Crawford, when the bell rang, they're different people in the ring, and they focus on it. Now, with all that said, all those accolades said for Terence Crawford, moving up not one, not two, but three weight classes to fight arguably the best super middleweight on the planet today in Saul Canelo Alvarez would be quite a feat. But here's the reason why I think it makes sense. First of all, if you take a look at Terence Crawford and you look at his record and you look at his past. Now, if you recall, he was under the promotional team of Top Rank, Bob Arum and Top Rank. And I said all along that I didn't think that that Top Rank did him any favors while he was with them. They really didn't. They failed to get him the big fights. Hey, anybody that's watching live right now, I know we kicked off the show almost 5 hours or 4 hours early. Come on in the chat room and give me some of your thoughts, and we'll talk about it. But when he was with Top Rank, when Terence Crawford was with Top Rank, they didn't do him any favors. They didn't get him the big fights. I think that was also a reason why people didn't believe that he was as good as I always thought he was. But he's on his own now, and he isn't towards the end of his career. There's no question about that. And he needs listen, let's face it, the guy's looking for a payday. Who else can he fight that he's going to make the money that he would against Canelo Alvarez? There's nobody else out there. There was a comment made by Antonio Tarver. Speaking of Antonio Tarver, did you hear that Antonio Tarver and Roy Jones Jr. are going to have a fight? I mean, this is the kind of stuff. Juggernaut, thank you for the accolades in the chat room. This is the kind of stuff that makes people just shake their head and not tune into boxing. 50 years old plus fighting each other. Okay, they're saying it's a what do they call it? Not a real match, exhibition. Thank you, Brain. But even so, who the hell wants to see it? It's the same thing, which I'll get to in a little bit later. Manny Pacquiao, him claiming that him and Mayweather are going to fight this year, a rematch. Nothing. I haven't heard anything from the Mayweather side. And those guys are both in their 40s. I hope that, if they do have a fight, Mayweather and Pacquiao, I hope it's not a exhibition. These exhibitions have a tendency to end in a draw, as we saw when Roy Jones Jr. fought Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson beat the shit out of him, and it became a draw. But Antonio Tarver believes that if Crawford doesn't fight Spence next, that the only guy that he should be fighting is Enos. And I disagree. First of all, I don't believe that Terence Crawford needs to even fight Errol Spence. Errol Spence may never fight again. I mean, he had some problems. He just had the retina surgery. And if he does fight, I doubt he's going to want to fight at any weight class. I doubt he's going to want to fight Terence Crawford. So the pickings are slim for Terence. And I really think that a Terence Crawford Canelo Alvarez fight not only will draw live and pay-per-view audiences, because it'll definitely be a pay-per-view, but I think it'll be an entertaining fight. And I'm a Canelo fan. All right, I didn't like his ducking a Triple G during that whole thing. Waited, but I got news for you. I'm going to tell you right now, even before it's been signed, sealed, and delivered. I think, and people are I know they're gonna laugh at me, and they're gonna think I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm predicting right now, Terence Crawford beats Canelo Alvarez. I'm telling you right now, he's going to beat Canelo Alvarez, because Terence Crawford takes his craft very seriously. So does Canelo. And I believe, given enough time, and this is where I think if Terence Crawford is smart, which I think he is, I think that he should start training for this fight now. And I don't mean training and to burn himself out. I mean gain the weight, put the weight on now, and just do some, not high density training where he's, preparing to get in the ring. I'm talking about put on the weight the correct way, get his body used to the weight, and walk around with that weight. So it's not like, sometimes these fighters would when they go up in weight, they eat a bunch of sandwiches or whatever, and they put on the weight, and they're really not used to the weight, and they're not the same. I do believe Terence Crawford can handle the weight. I mean, we're talking about a guy that will probably come in the fight at 168, whereas Canelo Alvarez on fight night would probably be, at least 175, maybe even 180. So Terence Crawford would be giving up the size and weight. But I don't think it matters. I got news for you. Terence Crawford is a better boxer than Canelo. And I think that, Canelo would do what Canelo does. He'll try to break down Crawford and eventually try to beat him, stop him. But Crawford's too smart. He's a crafty guy. He's got that jab. He's got the mean streak. He's got great footwork. And he's got some pop. Will the pop be with him in 3 weight classes above? I don't know. But accumulation of punches certainly would. And Canelo Alvarez can be hit. We saw what a talented boxer can do to Canelo when we saw Bivol beat him. Okay, so my prediction right now, early, and the fight's not even signed, is that Terence Crawford actually beats Canelo Alvarez. And I hope this fight happens. I do think it's a big fight for the sport of boxing. And I think it's really, if you look at it from a financial point of view, it's really the only option that Terence Crawford has that could make him the money that he's looking for. He's looking for a cash-out fight. Come on, do you blame him? Do you blame him? I mean, come on, all these guys that do this, people are always critical and stuff like that. But Terence Crawford is a guy that never got the paychecks that he should have. And I think that this fight would give him the paycheck. He's not going to get a paycheck fighting Enos. He's not going to get a paycheck fighting anybody, except for Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez is within reach of Crawford in terms of size and weight. I hope the fight happens, and I'm telling you now. I know it's early, but I'm predicting Terence Crawford. We got a couple people in the chat room. Straight Face says Terence is a master boxer. I think he beats Canelo too. You're right. I mean, look, it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but I'm being honest. One of the reasons people don't like me is I'm a straight shooter. I tell it like it is. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks, and the truth of the matter is Terence Crawford, I've been saying it on this show for years, that he is way better than people give him credit for. All of a sudden now, he's a pound for pound fighter. Yeah, no shit. I mean, this is a guy that look, whoever says he didn't fight anybody doesn't know boxing. Okay, look at his record. Look at the stage of when he fought those guys, and they were all in their primes. Something other people don't do. But Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, I think it would be I think it would be great for boxing. And my prediction is Crawford wins. And if he wins, man, would that solidify his legacy? And to tell you the truth, I think it would solidify his legacy even if he lost. I think that the fact that I don't think Canelo goes and destroys him. I don't think Canelo knocks him out. I don't think you're going to see like what happened to the Charlo. Canelo just battering him from ring post to ring post, and Charlo just wanted to survive. Charlo got in there for a paycheck, right? Charlo got in there for a paycheck, but that's all he was there for. He didn't fight. You could bet your last nickel. You could bet your last effing nickel that Terence Crawford will come to fight. He would train and get in that ring to win the fight, not to survive the fight and not to just collect the paycheck. Terence Crawford would get in the ring and fight Canelo at his weight class, at Canelo's weight class, and he will train to win the fight. And I predict that he will. All right, real quick. We got some fight results that took place this last weekend, and a fight that was pretty cool. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. Jaime Munguia. Did I say it right? I've been criticized about how I've been mispronouncing his name, and it's Munguia. I even went to how do you pronounce it? And I spelled it. But anyway, Munguia stopped John Ryder in what I thought was a really good fight. Munguia improved to 43-0 with 34 knockouts. And I just want to say something. Speaking of 43-0, okay, that's 7 fights short of 50-0. that Floyd Mayweather, despite the fact that there's been so many other fighters that have reached 50-0 and beyond before their first loss, that are better than or was better than Floyd. But let me tell you, Munguia has a great chance, if he plays his cards right, of surpassing 50-0. Okay, I'm just saying. And then that's the shtick with Mayweather, that he retired, and he was smart enough to retire before somebody beat him. Munguia, excuse me, he's only 27 years old. He's got a great chance. And John Ryder was no easy, despite now 7 losses, he was no easy win. Remember, Canelo didn't stop Ryder. Ryder gave him a good fight, and Munguia, he beat the hell out of him. Going into the fight, he was 42-0. Some comments that I have, despite the commentators saying, "Oh, ever since he's been training with Freddie Roach, we see a difference with him." I didn't. I mean, he's got 43 fights. He's the same fighter that I've seen. I've seen a lot of his fights. He hasn't changed. He fights the same way. He dropped Ryder in the second round. He drops him in the fourth. To me, he started looking tired by the fourth round, but he ran out to start the third. Like I said, by the time the knockdown came in the fourth, I thought he looked tired. I didn't think he should be tired. He's only 27. He's got the youthful energy. By the seventh round, he clearly was tired. His mouth was open. He was plotting. But he attacked. The commentators were saying, "Oh, it looks like he's taking this round off," which I'm saying to myself, he's 27 years old. Why does he have to take a round off? And considering what he did in the eighth round, he totally attacked John Ryder. Ryder, although Ryder finished strong, and he shot his load, by the way, in the eighth round. Ryder finished strong, but in the ninth round, what it looked like, it was a powerful right hand, almost like it almost looked like a snappy jab to me. I mean, that's it just was a powerful straight right hand, dropped Ryder. And then he was dropped again in the ninth. He was in real trouble. But the stupid referee was about to let him continue the fight. The corner's trying to stop it. They're standing on the ring, waving the towel. They wanted to stop it. Everybody saw that the fight needed to be stopped. Even the janitor that was cleaning up some beer spills in the third row, he saw it. Everybody saw it. And then finally they had to ring the bell to get the referee's attention to stop the fight. I mean, what a terrible, terrible referee job. I mean, people are critical of referees that stop the fights too soon, but it's better than letting it go too far. I mean, Ryder was in trouble. That fight needed to be stopped, and thank God it was. In my opinion, I think Munguia still needs to develop a defense. He has no defense, boys and girls. He doesn't. He takes way too many shots. And as a matter of fact, when Ryder was getting pummeled, Munguia was very susceptible to the counterpunch, and was landing the counterpunches on Munguia. A better level fighter could possibly hurt Munguia. I think he needs to work on defense. He takes way too many punches. He has absolutely no head movement. I really was watching to see if he moved his head at all, and he doesn't. And that's dangerous. He's very heavy-handed. There's no question. And he did. I will admit, I did notice him up on his toes really for the first time. I never really noticed him bouncing on his toes trying to box. But like I say to young fighters, and I've said on this show many, many times, it's human nature to always revert back to what comes to you naturally. And when fighters that, in Munguia's case, a fighter like him who's been so successful with his power and stuff like that, when they try to learn credit to trainers that try to teach fighters new things when they learn something. And like in this case, Mungaya, he learns how to get up on his toes. As soon as the guy gets tired or he gets in trouble, they automatically snap back to what comes naturally, and that's beating the hell out of you, and coming after you and trying to let your hands go, and that's when he's going to be susceptible to be getting into some trouble. Oscar De La Hoya, I just want to say, I'm going to talk about him a little later. I saw the interview with him for this fight, and the beauty of Oscar De La Hoya, at least this version of Oscar, is that he does want to work with other promoters like Bob Arum and his Top Rank, Eddie Hearn and his Matchroom, Frank Warren and his promotional company, and all, or I should say most of the smaller promoters, they all will work with him except Al Heyman and the PBC, which I think was one of the worst things that ever happened to the sport of boxing. Al Heyman and the PBC. The PBC fighters, as far as I'm concerned, they're all frauds. The only couple of good ones aren't fighting anymore. They're frauds, and they're being exposed left and right. Al Heyman saw the blueprint that Dana White and the UFC made, and he saw the success. And that, boys and girls, is what he's trying to do with the PBC. Remember, this is how quickly boxing fans have at least young boxing fans have a tendency to forget. When he busted out onto the scene with the PBC, everybody was praising him that he saved boxing. And he was saying how good he's going to be for the fighters and how much more money they're going to make. And boxing's going to be on free TV. And it was for the first year. Now, everything that he does costs you money, and he's delivering a shit product. Okay? I'm going to get to that in a second. But Oscar De La Hoya trying to work with the other promoters. And, I just don't get how boxing fans actually drink the BS Kool-Aid that the PBC passes around. It's a joke, and it's hurting the sport. I really think it's hurting the sport. I just want to touch on a fight that took place a couple of weeks ago. Artur Beterbiev knocked out Callum Smith. There was no surprise there, at least in my opinion. Smith was battered and beaten pretty badly by the sixth round. And after the second knockdown in the seventh, Buddy McGirt, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated trainers in the sport of boxing today. If I was a young fighter, the first guy I'd want to sign up with is Buddy McGirt. But he did the right thing, and he stopped the fight when it looked like the referee was going to let it continue again. I just couldn't believe it. A couple of things I noticed. Here we go. We're back. Sorry about that. We lost connection for a second. I was just about to give some thoughts on Beterbiev's gloves. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but I certainly did. His gloves had those white line designs in them. I don't know if you recall seeing it. There was like these lines on his gloves, which matched his trunks and stuff. I don't think they should have been allowed to be used. It was almost like a hypnotic thing, in my opinion. I don't think they should have let him let it use. I thought it was 100% distraction. It's like, if you ever trying to follow an object, those gloves were hypnotizing. I mean, listen, I don't think the gloves made any difference for Smith. I think it was inevitable what the end was going to be. But I'm really shocked that the commission let those gloves pass. My thoughts on the broadcast in general, Timothy Bradley on ESPN. Listen, this guy knows his shit, and he's very technically informative. during the fights, and I've always loved Timothy Bradley. Have had him on the show a couple of times years ago, and what a great guy, what a great human being. Joe Tessitore, Tess, as everyone calls him at ESPN. I love him as a football guy, but as a boxing commentator, he's grown into someone who's really hard to listen because he's such a company man. I'll give you an example. During this whole fight, I can't remember how many times, because you needed a clicker to keep track, how many times he kept pointing out round after round after round how Smith has never been down in his career. Smith has never been down in his career. He's never been down, never been down, never been down. And if no one else saw that, they knew damn well that Smith was going to be going down in this fight. He was just setting up for when he got to say, he's been down for the first time in his career. He yells. It was so choreographed to me. It made me sick. It made me sick. And finally, you know how I think of Bernardo Usun, right? But Mark Kriegel is terrible. I mean, he sounds and acts like he's better than everybody else. And truthfully, aside from info he obtains during the interviews, I'm not sure he knows much about the sport of boxing. I've never heard him really say anything technical. You know, he's a guy that you know, I think he's trying to act like Larry Merchant, to be honest with you. And I just, you know, I've been criticized. My main man, Alex Papali, has disagreed with me on this, but I believe that boxing's for regular people, man. You know, the regular guy likes to box. I mean, we started this show 21 years ago, and the premise of the show was I wanted it to seem like there were just a couple of guys BSing at a bar or whatever, and talking about boxing. I remember that fight. Oh, do you remember so-and-so? Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, that's what we tried to do this show about. And those are the kind of people that I believe boxing was intended for. We don't need any uppity-uppities that, you know, are trying to make boxing more than what it is. It's a combat sport. The object is to render your opponent unconscious. I mean, you can't sugarcoat it. You know, you can't. So that's that. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my man Clinton McKenzie. He's a former BBBBBFC super lightweight champion, and he owns a gym in London, McKenzie Boxing and Fitness. And I would love to do a show from there. McKenzie and I'm sorry, Clinton McKenzie and I, you know, communicate a little bit through social media. And I would love to do a show there. He would love to have us there too. So we're trying to work on some sponsors. So if you know anybody that would love to get us to do the show live from London, reach out. Would love to make it happen. All right. So some boxing news that I want to get to. Joseph Parker and Zhilei Zhang are officially the co-feature for the March 8th fight taking place in Saudi Arabia. You know, I like this fight. You know, I do think that Parker was in the driver's seat. I think that he could have gotten some other fights. I don't think people are going to be so quick to fight him, especially after he beat Deontay Wilder. But I give Zhang credit. I don't think Zhang is going to beat him. He's too slow. Zhang, who's 26 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 21 comes by knockout. He's scored back-to-back stoppage wins over Joe Joyce. You know, there were big fights for Zhang, and they were the only big fights on his record. You know, Joseph Parker has fought, you know, the best of the heavyweight division, really, at least, you know, recently. And I like the fight. I just think Joseph Parker is the man to beat in that matchup. The giant from China, 40 years old. You know, he's got a granite chin. He's 6'6", almost 300 pounds, well, 287. I think Parker's going to outbox him, and I think it's going to be a fight that is going to be a showcase for Parker. I got my man Amok in the chat room saying he's got Zhang winning. Cool. Well, hey, listen, when you can have multiple people picking opposite sides of a fight, that's telling you it's a good matchup. You look at these lines on fights now, you lay in $2,000 to win $100. I mean, that's how lopsided they are. Also, Ray Vargas is on that card defending his WBC featherweight title against Nick Ball. So that's a good one. Speaking of the PBC, and this backs up what I was just saying before, okay? Amazon Prime, which somehow Al Heyman sweet-talked his way into getting professional boxing on Amazon Prime, which doesn't surprise me. I think Amazon Prime should have more boxing, just not the PBC, because the PBC is nothing but a bunch of frauds. And this is going to prove it. So I don't know if you've followed the bouncing ball of the title for the 154-pound title. But the fight that is going to be taking place. I'll get to that in a second. This card that's taking place on March 30th, okay, which is this Amazon Prime fight. Keith Thurman is going to be fighting Tim Tszyu for Tszyu's WBO title. Whoa, wait, that's right. The WBO grew a pair of you-know-whats, and they wouldn't sanction it. Why should they? Keith Thurman, he hasn't fought in over 2 years, 25 months to be exact. It's a joke. And the fact that it's a pay-per-view is even more of a joke. PBC, this is the kind of fights they deliver to us, all right? And Sebastian Fundora and Serhii Boachuk, they're going to be fighting for one of the title. Remember, Charlo was stripped of his belts, except for the PBC, who's got him listed as a champion in recess, which is total bullshit. But Tim Tszyu against Keith Thurman. How does Keith Thurman get this fight? Tim Tszyu doesn't care. It's not a title defense. He'll beat the hell out of Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman was one of the most wasted talents I've ever seen. And maybe he was never talented at all. All the excuses. Keith Thurman is totally embarrassing for the sport of boxing. And so is the PBC, in my opinion. It's embarrassing that they're doing it. But I love what Tim Tszyu says. He wanted to fight Jermell Charlo because Jermell Charlo at the time was the guy that was in charge of the 154-pound division. Okay, he chose to fight Canelo for the paycheck, and he laid an egg. Okay, he was a stinker. And Tim Tszyu got elevated to the champ. They vacated the other ones except for the WBC. And Tszyu says, I've come to the conclusion that I'm never going to fight him, meaning Jermell Charlo, because he's a coward. Finally, all of the sanctioning bodies are realizing that he's a fraud. He went so hard to win the belts, but it's harder to keep him. And that's what Tszyu said. And, to be honest with you, that is a true statement. But the Charlo brothers, in my opinion, were frauds. They both are frauds. Jermell at least won all the belts, but they were set up for him. They were layups. It was the champions or the vacant titles that he won as well. The Charlo brothers are exactly what the PBC is about. Frauds. Speaking of the WBC earlier, I don't want you to combine that with the word fraud because I don't think they're a fraud. But it was ordered by the WBC that heavyweight Frank Sanchez and Ajit Kabial have to fight an elimination bout, and they're in free negotiation period right now. And this is where you gotta really followed a bouncing belt because Anthony Joshua. So, and this is my big hang up with the sanctioning bodies. As long as you don't have a championship belt, they'll rank you. And in my opinion, even though you have somebody else's belt, if you're the another sanctioning body, you should still rank the fighter. Because the object of being ranked is for us to see who the top fighters are in that division, regardless of the sanctioning body. Most fans don't really care about which sanctioning body it is. They just know he's number 7 and he's ranked at number 7, you know. And then goes, oh, well, which sanctioning body is he in? Well, that's there goes the dilution of the sport of boxing and all the sanctioning bodies. But Frank Sanchez, so the Anthony Joshua right now, and that's another thing. I think that champions need to fight the number 1 contender, and if you're going to have an elimination bout, it has to be against the number 1 and number 2 guy to win the right to fight the champ. Or that's another thing. They have spots that are open. You look at the sanctioning bodies, you got not rated for 1 and 2, but then they have ratings all the way down for after that. Why isn't number 3 number 1 if you don't have a guy to put in number 1? Because it's all about the do re mi. Whoever, what can you put in my left hand to make me write your name on our sanctioning top 10 list with my right hand? Anyway, Anthony Joshua, WBC's number 1 ranked contender as of now. However, he's fighting, and they would say that he's would fight Philip Hrgovic to get the title shot. However, he's fighting Ngannou. So if Anthony Joshua beats Ngannou, chances are Philip Hrgovic and he will fight for the IBF title, because it's already projected that the winner of Fury Usyk is going to be stripped of the IBF belt. So if that takes place, then the current number 1 ranking that Anthony Joshua has with the WBC goes away. Joseph Parker, who's the former WBO champ, is ranked at number 3 by the WBC, but because he's challenging Zhang for his interim WBO belt, that means if he wins, he's going to be taken out of the WBC rankings, right? So it's crazy. So what do? You keep going down the list, and poof, you got Frank Sanchez against KBO. I like the fight. I just don't like how it got made. Speaking of some more news, Ryan Garcia. This is becoming I don't know if you guys have been following this, but Ryan Garcia has become quite the soap opera. As the stomach turns, it's called. And Ryan Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya, and Mayweather, right? So Ryan Garcia made some comments about Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya. He said that he's really close. They're good friends with Mayweather. He said, and I quote, these are quotes from Garcia. He says, this is my problem when people ask me about Oscar De La Hoya. He wants them to stop going to the media and bashing Floyd. There's no reason. De La Hoya just did that because he was mad. At the end of the day, Floyd is influential to me. It's a normal conversation we have. Mayweather said, so why don't you try and get a belt and then go fight Haney for a bigger unification? It makes more sense and there's more money at stake. I said, I don't know, Floyd. I gave people my word. And this is typical Floyd, because Floyd doesn't give anyone his word. His word is worth garbage. And Floyd says, well, things change. And he gave me, I'm just going to keep it short and simple. And I was like, all right, Floyd, gave you what? Your advice? He stopped short of saying that, because that would have backed up what Oscar was complaining about. He continued, and he said, I look up to Floyd a lot. I love the guy. That's why I went out on a limb to defend him online when I didn't really have to, because I genuinely know he has a big heart. He's got a huge heart. He's authentic. Does he like money? Yeah, but he also loves blessing people. He tries his best. Me and Floyd have gotten really close, and I really value our relationship. He's actually just called me. He was asked about what he thinks the differences between Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather, and he said the key difference has to do with authenticity. He says Oscar is getting to the point where he's becoming his true self. He's goofy, crazy, and whatever he wants to be, just kind of living in truth. Floyd has always been living in truth. He's as real as it comes. He said they asked him about Oscar De La Hoya's career as a professional fighter. And this is where this interview went totally off the rails, because this guy, Ryan Garcia, says Oscar had a lot of potential. I just think Oscar didn't reach his fullest potential. He let all the bullshit get to him. This shit is bullshit. All the fame, all the money, all the girls, that is bullshit. There's only one purpose, and that's God. Well, I'll agree with one purpose being God. That I agree with. But to suggest that Oscar De La Hoya didn't reach his full potential, that's bullshit. And I have said those exact words about Floyd Mayweather. And the reason why I say that is, everyone that likes Floyd Mayweather says that he's the best just because. He didn't have to actually fight a guy to show that he was better, because he said he could beat him. So that gives him the credit right there, which I disagree with. I think that you earn your stripes in the ring. And Oscar De La Hoya fought everybody. Nobody could say that Oscar De La Hoya ducked anyone during his professional career. Never did he duck a fighter. Floyd Mayweather ducked many. So to compare the careers of the two, of putting aside the O, which Floyd has and Oscar doesn't, is total crazed. It's nuts, in my opinion. All right, some fights that are coming up that are on TV that I'm looking forward to. I'm going to break down this weekend's card. Just two fights on the card. But February 8th, which is Thursday, which we'll be doing our next show, and I'm being, I'm gonna do a breakdown of that fight the night of, which is Thursday. I like the fights during the week. I used to love Tuesday night fights, and I like it. Getting a comment here. Amok says Mello is a weight bully that ducked Lara. Yeah, I listen. The Charlo brothers to me are frauds with a capital F. My man Mike says De La Hoya is a bit of a, I think he meant crook, but he says he's a bit of a cook. But he fought them all in their prime. He did, and Mike, that's my point. Nobody can say. I think that me personally, I think that Ryan Garcia is being conned by Floyd. Floyd's the best con man out there. I mean, look what he's done to his fans all these years. He cons them into paying for subpar matches against over-the-hill fighters or people that shouldn't even be in the ring with Floyd. And I always thought that Floyd never showed us the best. I think Floyd maybe could be regarded as one of the best ever if he fought the best, but he never did. I honestly believe that we never saw Floyd at his absolute best in the ring because he never challenged himself once he went on his own. He was in some tough fights. He was an exciting fighter back when he was with Top Rank. Go back and watch some of those fights. Exciting. It reminds me of a guy that I think is today is one of the most underrated fighters. He's no longer with us. I was a friend of his after his greatness. But Hector Macho Camacho was one of the greatest fighters ever to put on a pair of gloves. Before the Edwin Rosario fight, this guy had it all. He had charisma. He was a ticket seller. He had hand speed. He had knockout power. He had footwork. He had defense. You couldn't hit the guy. Yeah, I mean, and he went in there for the kill. and he changed his style, after the Rosario fight, because let's face it, Edwin Rosario beat the snot out of Hector, and it was a blessing that they gave. It was a robbery that they gave the win to Hector. I love Hector and Hector Jr. too, and the truth, not that Hector Jr. was as good as a fighter, but he's a great guy. Um, and people that don't or are too young to have seen Hector Camacho in his prime in the 80s, you missed out. Go back and watch some of that footage. This is a guy that was a great fighter, very similar to Floyd when Floyd was young with Top Rank. Floyd was going for knockouts. He was being aggressive. He was all these things. And then he went on his own and he became that track star that we all know. But aside from Thursday night, Teofimo Lopez against Jamie Ortiz, that's going to be for the WBO junior welterweight title. February 10th, Liam Dillon against Reese Bellotti on DAZN. Hey, listen, if you're going to get one thing out of this upcoming TV schedule, you're going to see that DAZN clearly has taken the lead in broadcasting boxing, because they'll put on anything from like a club show all the way up to the best versus the best. I think DAZN has been the best thing for the sport of boxing. February 15th, the return of another exciting fighter who is not afraid to fight anybody, Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz is taking on Jesus Perez. February 16th, you got Adrian Carell going against, let's just say, Not Shinga. I can't even pronounce his first name, but his last name is Not Shinga. That's for the WBO light junior flyweight title. Also on the 16th, you got Oshak Foster against Abraham Nova for the WBC featherweight title. February 17th, the big heavyweight showdown, unification on DAZN pay-per-view. Tyson Fury against Alexander Usyk, which I know I pronounce his first name wrong, but I'm the murderer of the English language. That's why I always say Usyk. Also on that card, Joe Cordina against Anthony Kikasi. And it's the return of Sergey Kovalev at cruiserweight, taking on Robin Sirwan Safar. On the 24th, February 24th, on ESPN Plus, you got Takuma Inoue against Jerwin Asias for the WBA bantamweight title. Alexandro Santiago against Junto Nakatanya for the WBC bantamweight title, and Kosi Tanaka against Christian Rangel for the WBO junior bantamweight title. That's taking place in February. And then, of course, I mean, we'll get into the March schedule in the future, but March 8th, mark that one down, from Saudi Arabia, Anthony Joshua against Francis Ngannou, and Zhilei Zhang against Joseph Parker. Two big fights on that. The rest of the card is going to be fantastic as well. Love those events in Saudi Arabia. That's for sure. All right. So this weekend, we got a couple of fights that I just want to talk about. Conor Benn. This is taking place in Las Vegas. Conor Benn is the main event against Peter Dobson. Conor Benn is 27 years old, and his record is 22-0 with 14 of his wins coming by knockout. He's an orthodox fighter out of the UK. He's 5'8" in height. He's ranked number 19 by the computer, and the WBC has him ranked at number 5. He's not ranked at all in the WBA, IBF, or WBO, which I find strange. You take a look at this guy's record, and he's been beating quality opposition since 2020. And if you do the math, that's his last 6 professional fights. He beat in November of 2020. He beat Sebastian Formella. He beat Samuel Vargas in April of 21. He beat Adrian Granados in September of 21. All three of them, good fights. He beat and stopped Chris Algieri in December of 21. Granted, Chris Algieri, was older by then, and so was Chris Van Herden, who he beat in April of 22. Both of these guys knockouts. His very last fight was against an experienced fighter. He won a 10-round decision over Rodolfo Orozco in Florida. But this guy's been fighting some quality opposition. I like Conor Benn. He's stepping in the ring with Bronx native Peter Dobson, who's not ranked anywhere because he hasn't fought in almost a year and a half, more than a year and a half, 1 year and 8 months to be exact. He's 16-0 at 9 knockouts. He's 33 years old. He's 5'10". He's got a 2-inch height advantage. No one on his resume, not one win of those 16 wins is anybody that I would be bragging about. Despite what I would think he gets, which is great sparring, he's from the Bronx, and New York has some great fighters. There's no question about that. I see Conor Benn stopping this guy. I know that he hasn't lost yet, but he's going to lose this weekend. I'm picking Conor Benn. And the other fight I want to talk about was a fighter that I had mentioned a few weeks back as a fighter that I really am keeping an eye on. He's a heavyweight out of the UK, Johnny Fisher. He's 10-0 with 9 knockouts. He's 6'4", which isn't a monster by today's heavyweight standards. He usually comes in around 238, 240 pounds. So he's a big guy. He's in good shape. He's not fat. I think his fight, which he's going up against Dimitro Bezos, I think on paper, this is going to be the toughest fight of his career to date. He did win the BBBSC Southern Area Heavyweight title, which was vacant, but he fought Harry Armstrong, who was 5-1-1, and stopped him in the 7th round. I do believe Bezos is going to be the best fighter to date. 6'4", he's given up 2.5 inches because Bezos is a pretty big guy at 6'6.5". He's not ranked by anybody. Neither is Johnny Fisher. The computer ranks him at 180th in the heavyweight division. In contrast, Bezos is ranked 265th by the computer. As you know, the computer bases their rankings on who beat who and who they beat, et cetera, et cetera. You look at this guy, he's 10 wins, 1 loss. He was stopped in that loss. He's got 5 of his wins coming by knockout. All of his wins against weak opposition. His best opponent that he ever stepped in the ring against was David Adderley, and he was stopped by Adderley. That's his loss in the 2nd round of a scheduled 10-round fight. How's this fight going to go? I think Johnny Fisher is going to introduce himself to the United States crowd. This fight's in Las Vegas, and Johnny Fisher is going to win by knockout. I got a couple of emails I want to read. He said, I got a comment from my man Amok. He says, Floyd Jr. is Lance Armstrong 2.0, except he never got caught. Plus, his marketing gimmick is his fake 0 on his record. Old, unbiased, hardcore fans remember Floyd Jr. losing to Castillo in the first fight. And you know what? You could make the argument that Oscar De La Hoya beat him too. It was an extremely close fight. And if you recall, Oscar's own corner told him to stop fighting, that he had to fight in the bag. That should be a lesson that every fighter learns. Don't ever pussyfoot around in a fight. I forget who it was. I used to remember the name, but there was a fighter on ESPN. I'll never forget this. I forgot his name, but I won't forget the fight. He's fighting, and the corner's telling the guy's going, I could stop this guy right now. And he was battering him, and the guy was in trouble and everything. And his corner tells him, no, Don't stop him. Don't stop him. You need to get rounds. You need to get rounds in. And guess what happened? The other guy catches him and knocks him out, and he lost the fight. Rule number one, boys and girls, when the bell rings, end it as quickly as you can. End it as quickly as you can. Which reminds me, somebody was commenting on the announcement that Shakur Stevenson said that Shakur Stevenson said that he's retiring. Which, listen, this is just coming from, in my opinion, and I commented on it. It's just coming from a young fighter who's frustrated with the business side of the sport of boxing. Stevenson wants to fight all the big fights, and nobody wants to fight him. But I will tell you this, that and I don't think that I don't think that he's really retired. But I tell people all the time, and I saw this comment on social media saying, "Oh, why would he want to retire? He can make all this money for half hour's work." No, it's not a half hour's work. It's not the time in the ring, boys and girls, because true fighters are putting their heart and soul, all their time into training. The fight is just the end of the whole sequence of what goes into a fight: the dieting, the exercise, the sparring, the working out, the sacrifices that you make. That's what fighters do. It's not just what you're friggin' watching on TV for 10 or 12 rounds. That's the end. That's the highlight. That's the load that they're shooting. I mean, the truth of the matter is that a true fighter, and this is where I give Floyd credit. Floyd was always in shape. We could say what we want about him being a track star and ducking all the fights and fighting people when they were on, Geritol and all this other stuff. But the truth of the matter is even to this day, Floyd Mayweather has always taken care of himself. He's always been in good shape, and he's always prepared. That was my knock on Manny Pacquiao, which I think was a better fighter than Floyd. But the fight against Pacquiao and Floyd, when it came to light that Manny had hurt his shoulder and didn't want to disappoint everybody. And I was very critical on this show. And I said, Manny Pacquiao made a bonehead error, should have never done it, because you could bet your last penny, that if Floyd Mayweather wasn't 100%, he would have never stepped in the ring. He wouldn't have gave a rat's ass about what the fans would think, what the promoter would think, what the venue would think. He wouldn't have given a rat's ass about that. He is prepared, and he wants his body, his mind, and his soul 100% ready to fight, which all fighters should do. So I don't want to hear an excuse that you got in the ring when you shouldn't have and all of that stuff, because it's up to you as the fighter to be your best when you get in the ring. And it takes a lot to get to that point. And whoever doesn't believe it don't know boxing. All right. Don't forget, we're dying to do a show in Clinton McKenzie's gym in London, McKenzie Boxing Fitness. If we're trying to get some sponsorship, if you know anybody, or if you want to do it yourself, hey, bring us over there. I think that this show would thrive in England, and Clinton McKenzie has opened up the door for us should we get over there. So help us out. All right. I got a couple of emails. This one's from my man, James. He said, I read your book about the life of Tom Molyneux. Wow, I'm so happy you've brought this story to the public domain. I just wanted to say thanks. Hey, thanks for reading the book, James. And if there's anybody else out there that hasn't read it, read it. And, it makes a great gift. I think everyone should buy 5 or 6 copies, and you can go on Amazon and buy yourself a dozen copies right now. I mean, do it. Okay. The other Alex, the old time other Alex, sent me an email about his title was Boxing Thoughts. He says, "Hey, Billy C, what's up? Glad to hear the new episodes. Wanted to touch base on a few topics that you've discussed recently on the shows. 2 fighters I've spent a lot of time thinking about over the last few years are Ezra Charles and Sonny Liston. 2 great fighters. Ezra Charles is a bit underrated, in my opinion, but he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He says, even though, and you all know how I feel about Sonny Liston, we had one of the, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to get Paul Gallagher back on here. He was making some statements about the death of Sonny Liston, and Some great stuff. It reminds me, I got to reach out to him. We'll get him back on ASAP. Anyway, he says, even though both were world champions, I believe both are criminally underrated in a historical sense. I agree with you, and I love that. I love that description. He says, after Marciano retired, I think you can make a good argument that Liston was the best heavyweight in the world for years. I agree. He says, while Floyd Patterson was getting dropped against guys like Tom McNeely and Pete Rademacher, who incidentally got a shot at the title. He was an Olympian guy, and next thing you know, he gets a shot at the title. But he says, at the same time, Liston was knocking out Zora Foley, Cleveland Williams, who had a granite chin, Nino Valdez, and Eddie Machen. Machen was a great fight. Patterson was protected. Customato wouldn't let Sonny anywhere near Patterson because he knew what would happen, which was exactly what did happen when they finally fought. Sonny's title reign should have been much longer than it was, and I believe people truly don't know how good Liston was. The first title reign of Ali is the version where many historians have said that Ali might have been unbeatable, but when you put it in perspective, that several of the fighters Ali dominated during his period were guys who had previously been destroyed by Liston 7 years earlier. Great point. Love the point, Alex. He says, on to the shoulder roll. You were talking about this after Ryan Garcia was using it in his last fight. He was using it poorly, in my opinion. It was a joke. It was a joke. The shoulder roll, I mean, you're supposed to be able to use it as a defense, but also be in position to hit somebody, He says, we have a whole generation of boxing experts because of YouTube. Fans that have become experts by watching PBC garbage. Oh my gosh, I should have read this before. The PBC is it's garbage. And Mayweather fights. Apparently, Mayweather's the king of the shoulder roll. He says with a question mark. This is what the internet tells me. He says, I guess these folks don't know who Jersey Joe Walcott is. He was doing the shoulder roll 70 years ago and doing it well. 100%. I got to stop reading it. 100%. 100%. Jersey Joe Walcott was the one that was doing the shoulder roll. And I look at, I'm in my studio. It's also an office. And it's, if you ever here, you would see it's all this boxing photos all over. And right there is one of my prized photos. I actually got it. In a small shop in the village of Lake George. It's a Rocky Marciano photo that's mounted, and it's now considering when he fought, how they captured this photo, and I'm sure you've seen it if anybody has seen these photos, but the photo and the cameras weren't even as good. Was caught the exact second when Rocky was landing this crushing punch on Jersey Joe, and his whole face is disfigured. I mean, it looks like an alien. We see it today a lot because the quality of the camera shots are so much better in the video and everything else. But it wasn't the case back in the 50s. And it's one of my favorite shots, and I'm looking at it right now. And, Jersey Joe was a great fighter, as Alex mentions, as a Charles. I mean, these are guys, this is, now I'm off topic, but this is what bothers me about the younger boxing fans today. They don't value this. You see, to me, and I, I'm a boxing guy. I'm a football and baseball guy. I mean, these are my three sports, right? And yes, I do know the history of both all three, boxing, baseball, and football. But I don't know if I believe that a fan needs to know all the historical facts about football and baseball. But I do think they need to know it about boxing because of the nature of the sport. And it's a one-on-one. It's not a team sport, and the sacrifices that fighters of yesteryear made and the advantages that today's fighters have because of the nutritional breakthroughs and the training techniques and the safety issues that these guys did not have. And considering that it was the most popular thing, like when I was a kid back in the early 1900s, just kidding, I'm not that fucking old. But, when I was a kid, we used to play a game called King of the Mountain. And when you threw everybody off the mountain, what did you say? I'm the heavyweight champion of the world, right? You're the king of the mountain. The ultimate title to have was the heavyweight champion of the world. You know why? Because there was only one. There was only one heavyweight champion. There was only one. Now what? You got four major sanctioning bodies, and then you could sprinkle in interim heavyweight champs, champion in recess, champion of Muay Thai, champion because he got a bloody nose, so he couldn't fight. So all this other crap. And these are the guys that went up the ranks and climbed the ladder. The top 10 contenders, number 10 fought number 9. The winner of that got to fight number 8, and blah, 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 blah. Right up the ladder till you got a shot at the title. That's the way it was. You don't see this shit that goes on today. You didn't see it back then. Anyway, he says, the point of a shoulder roll is to lure the opponent forward by tucking your chin behind the shoulder and turning sideways. If done correctly, the opponent is a sitting duck for a straight right hand. No one I see doing this technique today is following up with the straight hand. That's the whole point of the strategy. Oh, I love this sentence. He says, the sweet science is about putting yourself in a position where you can hit your opponent, but he cannot hit you. Correct. Be in a position to hit your opponent so he can't hit you, but you have to be in position to hit him. Mayweather would make guys miss with the shoulder roll, but he wouldn't land the right. And he wasn't in position to hit them. Floyd Mayweather, he would run, he says, oh, the sweet science is hit and not get hit. No, the complete definition of the sweet science is hit and not get hit, but be in position to inflict damage on your opponent. That's the rest of the statement. Floyd never says that part because when he ran away from somebody, he wasn't in a position to hit his opponent. Great defense is a guy like Vasily Lomachenko. Vasily Lomachenko, you're standing right in front of him. You're 2 feet away. He's hitting you, spinning, pivoting, and he's nailing you, and you can't hit the guy. That's friggin' sweet science. That's defense. That's what it is. He says, I'd recommend videos of James Toney, another one, using this technique against Mike McCallum and Iran Barkley if people want to see how it's really supposed to be done. People remember James Toney after he was a cigar smoking, beer drinking heavyweight. But, during the days of fighting Mike McCallum, the body snatcher, who was quite the character. I had a chance to hang out with him one time in Vegas. And Iran Barkley, who I love, one of the most underrated guys because everybody, Amok is saying Whitaker had defense. He did. And, he was, he had that, he had that mean streak. He was a guy I should have mentioned when I was talking about Terence Crawford at the beginning of the show because Purnell had that mean streak too. But anyway, thanks for the email, Alex. And hey, listen, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, I want to apologize for the late time start change, but I wanted to get the show in. I wanted to get my thoughts on Canelo Alvarez potentially fighting Terence Crawford. I still think it should happen. I support it. I want it to happen. And I've made an early prediction that Terence Crawford will beat Canelo Alvarez. And Terence, if you're listening, you're my man. But I hope that you're starting to gear yourself towards that fight. It's going to happen because Canelo, and maybe it won't, but I think Canelo is smart enough to know that a loss doesn't hurt him ever. He lost to Bivol. I would have liked to see a rematch against Bivol, but Bivol's got, a pretty tough fight coming up with Beater Beef. So when that fight gets signed, sealed, and delivered. But we got a couple of good cards coming up, and I'll be back next week to talk about the fight that's taking place Thursday night, the night we do the show. So, and remember, if you have any contacts with Clinton McKenzie or anybody that wants to see us do a show live from McKinsey's gym, boxing fitness gym in London, help us out. Drop me an email. We're looking for sponsors. We want to get over there, make it a party. I want to hang out with the boxing fans in England because I know that you're the best fans. You guys know the sport, and I love the way boxing is handled over in the UK. So drop me an email, bill@billycboxing.com or Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the comments in the chat room. And until next time, make sure you tune in to the same channel, same bat time, same bat channel. Tune into this channel, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to our podcast, and buy my book. Yeah, that's good. Until then, ciao, baby.